Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the new lecture of the Environmental Biology with the course code BOT-432. Today's topic is actually continuation of the previous topic, that is air pollution effects on living organisms and climate. The main topics to be discussed in this lecture are effects of various pollutants on living organisms, that include human, plants and materials. Dear students, in this lecture we will elaborate the previous lecture which was actually based a brief description of the effects of various pollutants on the human, plants and materials. In this lecture we will describe all those phenomena in detail. So before going into the details of the pollutants affecting the human health, we will shortly describe that what are the factors affecting human health. Now the most important is the nature of pollutant, that what kind of pollutant is affecting the human health. The next one would be the concentration of the pollutant, and then the duration of exposure, that for how much time the human being were exposed to this pollutant, and then state of health of receptor, that how was the health of the recipient, how was the health of that human which was actually exposed by that pollutant, and then the age group of the receptor, and what was the age of that human being that was exposed to a particular pollutant. So we have to understand that in previous lecture we have discussed almost all pollutants affecting the human lungs, human respiratory tract. So we have to understand this tract, and this tract is started from the nasal cavity. These are the openings to the external environment, and through these nostrils human inhale the air into its body. Then came the oral cavity, then pharynx, and then trachea, and then lungs. So these are the details of the lungs. These are the alveoli where the air ultimately reach and become vascularized, become saturated with the oxygen, and these are the alveolar duct and the bronchioles. So this was the just a short description of the human airway, so we can understand that how the various pollutants are affecting the respiratory tract of the human being. Effects on human health. So now we will discuss one by one various effects caused by the various pollutants on the human health. So 20 to 30% of all respiratory diseases are caused by the pollutants. Affect our health in many ways with both short term and long term. Means pollutants are affecting our health in various ways. Both, for example, sometimes the effect is very acute for the short time, but very acute, and sometimes the effect is a little bit minor, however it's for longer term. Short term effects include irritation to nose, eye, throat, bronchitis and headache, while the long term effect include lung diseases, chronic respiratory problems, damage to heart, brain and eyes. Eye irritation due to the noxes, ozone and pan and particulate matters, they are the major effects. Nose and throat problems due to the sulfur oxides and the various oxides of nitrogen, these are also very common. Gaseous pollutants, for example, hydrogen sulfide, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxide and hydrocarbon, they cause odor nuisance. They actually cause inconvenience to humans for breathing and for other various life carrying phenomena. Irritation of respiration tract caused by the oxides of sulfur and oxides of nitrogen and by carbon monoxide and ozone, they all collectively cause irritation of respiratory tract, which result in the increase in mortality, increase in the death rate of the human. Carbon monoxide and nitrogen oxide react with hemoglobin and reduce oxygen carrying capacity of blood. Student, I have previously discussed in the last lecture that we know that blood carries the oxygen, and it conveys this oxygen to all body parts. But when carbon monoxide and oxides of nitrogen, they react with the hemoglobin of the blood. Now the site of the hemoglobin for the oxygen is occupied by the oxides of nitrogen and carbon monoxide. Now hemoglobin has less capacity to carry the oxygen, so an overall decrease in the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood take place when there is present carbon monoxide and nitrogen oxide in the environment. Heavy metals like lead cause poisoning, and their high concentration can damage to the liver and kidneys, and they may even cause death of the human or any other living organism which feed on them. Dear students, I have summarized various kind of phenomena in this single figure about the effects of air pollution on plants. So first I will describe this figure and then we will go into the details. We can see here that many emissions from the primary sources, they may result into the emission of the nitrogen oxides and the sulfur oxides, ozone, hydrogen peroxide and PANs and various other pollutants into the air. Now these oxides and these pollutants combine with the water vapors, and now they came to the soil in the form of the acid deposition, we can say in normal term we can say it acid rain. Now it affects the soil and plants in different ways. I will discuss one by one. Firstly, they cause direct damage to the leaves and bark, because when this rain, these water droplets with the very low pH, meaning acidic pH, when they will directly come into contact with these plants, they will directly damage to the leaves and barks, and as a result they will reduce the photosynthesis and of course the growth of the plant, which will lead to the increased susceptibility to drought, extreme cold, insects and various diseases by the other organisms. So this plant would be very much vulnerable to all these attacks, and as a result this plant would be diseased plant, and definitely it would die because of all these injuries. This was the first way to damage the plant, and we can say this was the direct way to damage the plant. Now the next way is what? When this acid rain will come to the soil, it of course would be absorbed by the soil, and what is caused? It will cause the soil acidification, and because the pH of the soil would be acidified, and it will cause the leaching of soil nutrients because of the change in the pH. Various acid would be added to the soil, and release of various toxic metal ions because of this acidity. So all these things would be added to the groundwater, and this groundwater will go to the lakes, ponds and streams, etc., and will be added to the our drinking water also. After this water will be absorbed by the plants, they will cause the root damage, and as a result reduced nutrient and water uptake, because root would be damaged, and we know that root is the major element, major organ for the absorption of nutrients and water, and when the root is damaged, definitely nutrient uptake and water uptake would be reduced, and as a result what will happen? That plant would be vulnerable to the various diseases. Again, this is the result of both these phenomena, from this and from this here also. So because of this vulnerability and susceptibility to diseases, now this plant will die. This is the death of the plant. So this was a summary of all the effects of the various pollutants on the plants. and now we'll discuss them. They cause decreased yield in agriculture, they cause suppressed growth of vegetables, they cause leaf injury and damage to young plants, and decreased growth rate and increased death rate. This is the example of a normal leaf, and this is the leaf that is exposed to the various pollutants. We can see here, we can see the bleaching phenomena also, and we can see here the whitening of the leaf, and because of this bleaching and whitening of the leaf, the photosynthetic area of the plant would be decreased, and overall growth and yield of the plant would be decreased, because when leaf is the greenish part of the leaf is disappeared, the photosynthetic activity of the plant would be reduced. And now our next pollutant, which is the very poisonous pollutant, that is PAN, we have previously discussed, peroxysoil nitrates. Enzymes phosphoglucomutase and phosphorylase, they are inhibited by PAN. We know that these two enzymes are very important for the cell division and glycolysis and for the Krebs cycle, and these enzymes are inhibited by the PAN. It means that all the metabolic pathways would be blocked by the PAN. It can inhibit the mobilization of starch in darkness due to suppression of phosphorylase reaction. It means that phosphorylase reaction would be compromised by the PAN, would be reduced by the PAN, and as a result the mobilization of starch would be reduced. It also inhibits carbon dioxide fixation during photosynthesis. We know that carbon dioxide fixation is very important phase of the photosynthesis, because here plants prepare their own food by this carbon dioxide fixation, and when there is PAN in the environment, this fixation would be reduced, or even it may be inhibited, so the plant cannot prepare its food in the presence of PAN. The next one is fatty acid synthesis is affected by PAN due to oxidation of NADPH. When NADPH is oxidized, means its energy reservoir would be reduced, and then the fatty acid synthesis would be affected by the PAN, and ultimately it would be inhibited, and as a result the plant growth would be compromised. Here we can see PAN damaging the milkweed leaves. This is a minor injury because the PAN concentration was low. Here we can see this is the moderate energy, and in this case a very severe or heavy injury because of the PAN. Again, this is a figure explaining various kind of particulate matters affecting the plant growth. Here we can see various kind of particles. They are emitted by various sources which we have discussed, and they are deposited on the surfaces. They may be leached down towards the soil, and they cause the leaf damage and leaf decomposition. And then here in the B part, various hydrophilic or low molecular weight gaseous pollutants, they also penetrate through the stomata. They are dissolved in the watery fluid of the plant, and then they cause damage to the plant. In third case, lipophilic and high molecular weight gaseous pollutants, they can also gain entry into the plant through the stomata, and here when it is absorbed into the plant, it damages the plants. Effect of air pollutants on materials. Students, these pollutants are not only affecting the living organism, but also they affect the non-living materials, for example buildings, for example fabric, rubber material, plastic material, etc. Corrosion of metals due to sulfur oxide in presence of oxygen and moisture is converted into sulfuric acid, and this sulfuric acid corrode the metals. They cause the corrosion of metals. Sulfuric acid reacts with limestone, marble and other building materials to cause deterioration. Soiling and eroding of building materials, that is also caused by the air pollutants. Here are sulfur oxide, ozone and hydrogen sulfide, and aerosol damage protective coating and paints of the surfaces. So paints on the surface of various buildings, they are damaged by these pollutants. Ozone and PAN, they cause cracking of rubber and various electrical insulations. For example, electrical wires, etc. They are cracked by the ozone and PAN. Deterioration of artwork due to suspended particulate materials. We know we have various kind of artwork that is exhibited on various kind of places in our country, and that all kind of material is damaged by the suspended particulate materials. Effects of air pollution on materials. We can see here, this is the example of one of the world wonder, that is Taj Mahal. This original color is white, while it's turning to brown or yellowish because of the air pollution. We can see the difference here. Here, this is a very historical monument in Pakistan, in Lahore, the Badshahi Mosque, and here the Minar-e-Pakistan in Lahore. They are because of the various kind of particulate matter suspended in the air. We can see here the view is even hazy, view is not clear, and so when these buildings are exposed to these air pollutants, they get damaged. So dear student, that was all about the air pollutants, and this topic is almost finished. Their causes and their effects on various kind of things, living matter, living materials, and on the non-living materials. And these are few references which I have discussed for the preparation of this lecture, and here is the recommended book which you can discuss for even further details. I hope you have get enough information, but even you need more information, you can go through this book. Thank you very much for your concentration.